Hey everybody, I'm Joe. We're talking about the Marvel Multiverse TTRPG today, and we're going to be doing another character build. Here we go. This video did not start off as a character build. Instead, I was compiling a list of what I felt the most powerful abilities in Marvel Multiverse were, and I know that you're expecting me to say that the top one is omniversal travel. I've talked about it before, and omniversal travel is truly game altering in its implications, but when I was putting together my list of most powerful things, it didn't come in first. It came in second. A power that I felt was not as completely game altering, but rather totally encounter shattering came in first. Can you guess what it is? I haven't talked about it before on this channel, but it's lightning strikes. Lightning strikes is in the super speed power set, and the implications of it are so profound in combat that not only is it truly powerful, but so much so that you can't help but think about making a character around it, and that's what we're going to do today. This is our first attempt at a character build since the core rulebook came out that is focused on damage dealing. And the damage dealing that this power and this power set has is really fantastic. So we're going to build a speedster today. We're going to try and build as much of a single target damage dealing speedster as we possibly can, and you're going to be amazed at the amount of damage we can pull out of the super speed power set by the second half of this character's career. So we're just going to jump right in. As always, I'm not that good at naming my characters, but if you have a name, I want to hear about it in the comments below. For the meantime, I'll just be calling this character the Fast Blade. When we first meet our character, they are average size, they have 1 point of karma, 25 feet of movement speed, so they're not fast yet. And I think of this as a person who is on the cusp of all of a sudden gaining a tremendous amount of powers. Maybe they feel that they're a little bit faster than the people around them, that they react so quickly, it's almost as if they react before the triggering incident would cause them to react. And I think a major story aspect of this character is discovering along the way that he or she is in fact related to the gods in some way. And the story arc of this character is to find a god heritage and to start living up to that noble ideal, and along the way get faster and faster. And that kind of emergence story arc I think is very powerful, and I think that that's how this character first discovers powers and begins to actually grow into them along the way. And all of that means that when we start looking at building the character, we're going to start with our origin, and I want to take Mythic Olympian as our origin. I think it just makes sense to have a character this fast, this stunningly powerful, be related to the gods in some way, and Mythic Origin allows for that. Additionally, it provides two traits that we probably want. The first one is God Heritage. This character is by no means a god yet, but is related to the gods in some way and is discovering that. Now, mechanically, God Heritage grants an edge when dealing with something that we are the god of, which I don't know what that means for us in this story and in this context yet, but it will probably come up. The second trait that we're going to get is Enhanced Physique. Enhanced Physique is really more of a ribbon feature for this character, even though I use it mechanically in other builds. Enhanced Physique means that we are treated as one size larger than we are for lifting, carrying, swinging, and throwing things. I don't actually intend on doing that very much, but I think it just makes sense that this character is finding that they are physically more than they thought that they were. Now let's take a look at occupation, and this is a character who discovers along the journey that he or she is related to the gods, and in order to live up to the ideals of the gods is going to go on a quest to do good in the world, and so we're going to choose Adventurer. Adventurer makes a lot of sense for us. It drives character decisions, but it also provides two traits that we want: Fearless and Connections. The fearless trait just makes sense. It provides an edge on any check that has to do with fear, and that might be mechanically beneficial at times, but it also gives us a direction for playing this character in game and in making the decisions that this character would make. This is a fast character, and so I want this person to run headlong into danger. Being an adventurer, being fearless adds to those decisions. The connections trait is wonderful for driving a story forward. I've spoken about it before a little while ago, but I love the connections traits. We would have connections for superheroes as opposed to villains, and it means that we are connected to other heroes in the world. When you run into a sticking point in the plot and you don't know what direction to take your decision making or where to take your hero next, you have connections that you can go to, and you can speak to NPCs and you can find out where the next leg of the story goes. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I believe that narrators want you to take the connections trait so that they don't feel that they have to simply feed you a lore dump. You can go and seek out the information on where to go to next. Now let's go ahead and do some point buy. We have 5 points to spend at rank 1, and as always, I like to take a negative point buy into one of the stats. But which one? And we have a tough decision to make here. Your basic ground speed is calculated as 25 feet for an average sized person, but if we achieve 5 points of agility, we will then increase our speed by 5 feet. We're going to be taking speed powers, which multiply our base speed, and I want to be faster, so I have to put points into agility. Now, the attacks that we're going to make from the super speed power set specifically tell us we're going to be making melee-based attacks. So our primary stat has to be melee, but I can't dump agility in the way that I normally would. And so we have to dump one of the mental stats, either ego or logic. There is every reason to dump the logic stat here. It is the one that is far less common as an attack mode. If we dump ego, we are going to have a very soft defense score for one of the more primary attacking stats, and that might be bad for us. But on the other hand, dumping logic is going to impair the way that we investigate and that we perceive ourselves, and I don't love that as a character building trait. I think you have to dump one of the two. I will be dumping ego on this character because I like the idea of that as a story. Mechanically, this may not be the optimal choice because I don't have a lot of room to take one of the sad powers on this character to shore up that ego defense. Even with that, I'm still going to dump ego and take it to a -3. That's going to put melee for me at 4, which is the cap at rank 1, and I still have 2 points left over each for resilience and vigilance. This is going to give me defenses initially of 14s for melee and agility. We'll see how I got there. Of course, it's with a power. We're going to then have defenses of 12 for resilience and vigilance, only a 7 for ego, and it's never going to get good, and a 10 for logic. We're going to be sitting at 60 points of health and 60 points of focus as we start this character off. Now, you are expecting me to go immediately into the super speed power set because that's the concept of the character, and I'm not going to do that. The reason is everything we really want in super speed has a requirement of being rank 2 or higher, so it doesn't make sense to go into this at rank 1. Instead, we need to think about the weapon our character is using. We want to choose a melee weapon, and I think for this character, choosing a melee weapon that has the sharp trait to it is really what we want to do. When you go into the melee weapons power set, you choose a weapon and you choose if it is either blunt or sharp. A blunt object has the ability to stun a target for 1 round. The sharp trait is going to bleed that target until the bleeding condition ends. The bleeding condition is something I have not spoken about on this channel before, but it's pretty cool. If you have a sharp weapon that specifically is able to cause the bleeding condition, and you use a power that would create the bleeding condition, then you cut the enemy so much that they continue to bleed out, causing 5 points of damage every round until someone uses an action to stop the bleeding condition. If they go unconscious, they continue to bleed to death. So this just adds an immediate 5 points of damage every round of combat once we've done something with our blade that causes the bleeding condition. The first power we're going to take is Vicious Attack. Now, this is a normal attack. In other words, upon a success, we do damage. Upon a fantastic success, we do double damage, but also on a fantastic success, we cause the bleeding condition. I will be assuming that we get at least one bleeding condition up and running when I calculate damage for this character going forward. The next power we're going to take is Riposte. Now, Riposte is wonderful. It is a reaction power. So if someone misses us with an attack, we can attack them doing regular damage, double on a fantastic success, but also on a fantastic success, we cause the bleeding condition. Now our reaction is something that we can utilize for an attack anytime someone misses us. The next power we're going to take is Mighty 1. Mighty 1 gives us 1 damage multiplier for any attack that is made using our melee stat. Awesome. And the last power we're going to take at rank 1 is Brawling. Brawling is one of my favorite powers in the game. It allows us to use our melee defense score for our agility defense, and that's how I have a 14 defense for my agility at this rank. Now, what trait could I possibly want to take with a speedster? And I think you saw this coming, that I need to take Combat Reflexes. Combat Reflexes is probably my favorite trait in the entire game. It gives us an additional reaction. If you have a character that relies on reaction abilities to cause extra damage, you need this trait. So now we ideally could use Vicious Attack once and Riposte twice in a single round of combat. And when I calculate damage, I'm going to assume that we do exactly that and cause at least one bleeding condition. So let's take a look at damage on this character. We have a +4 for our damage from melee attacks and a 2 multiplier for melee weapons. We ideally will be able to do 1 vicious attack and 2 riposte attacks plus at least 1 bleeding condition in a round of combat. In order to be a little bit conservative, I'm going to assume only 1 bleeding condition because I am building this character for single target damage. You might attack multiple characters and cause multiple bleeding conditions, and that would be great, but I'm only going to calculate for 1. So if we roll an average attack for a vicious attack and 2 ripostes with 1 bleeding condition, we will do 41 points of damage in a single round of combat. That's pretty great at rank 1. But rank 2 is when we get fast. So I'm going into the super speed power set at rank 2 and I'm never looking back. The character all of a sudden gets really fast and finds out that he or she is somehow of godly heritage and has a calling to continue the work of the gods. We are going to, at every rank going forward, continue to put 1 point into melee and continually cap it, and this is no exception. I'm going to put 1 point into melee, bringing it to a 5. I'm going to bring agility to a 1. We're slowly building up agility for the speed bonus exclusively. We're going to bring resilience to a 4, vigilance to a 3. We now have defenses of 15 for melee and agility, 14 for resilience, 13 for vigilance, 7 for ego, 10 for logic. We will have 120 points of health and 90 points of focus. We will eventually be spending quite a bit of focus on this character, but not yet, which is why I'm not driving it too much at this rank. Our first power is going to be Speed Run 1. Speed Run 1 is a permanent power in the Super Speed Power set. We only have to be rank 2 in order to take it, and it says that our new in-combat speed is our rank times our regular speed. At that moment, we have 50 feet of movement in combat. Out of combat, we multiply that by 3, and so out of combat, we can run 150 feet per every 5 seconds. The next power we're going to take is Blazing Fast Fists in the Super Speed Power set, and this tells us that we have an edge on all melee attacks. All of them. I will be stacking an edge on our melee attacks in order to guarantee that we land the stuff we really want to land, and this is the core of that portion of the build. The next power we're going to take is Exploit. This is a reaction power that is triggered upon a fantastic success, and we get to make an attack against the resilience defense of our enemy. I do not anticipate on using this power all that much, but I would trigger it if my first attack, my vicious attack, is a fantastic success. I would do this rather than Riposte, which would be nice. The real reason we're taking Exploit is it is a prerequisite for something we need at our next rank. The last power we're going to take is Mighty 2, which gives us a 2 damage multiplier for all melee attacks. We will be taking all 4 of the Mighty powers, and we might as well just add it in right now when we can. The trait we're going to take at this rank is Free Running. For a character that is specifically a speedster running at all times, I just can't see not taking this power. I know that I take free running and combat reflexes on a lot of my character builds, but interestingly, in this character, I actually feel that it is a thematically appropriate choice, not just a mechanically good choice. This is someone who is now running outside of combat 150 feet per round. I want to give them an edge on doing so. I want to make them good at that ability. It's a core portion of the build. So let's talk about combat. I cannot rely on using Exploit because I can't guarantee a fantastic success on this character. I'm also building this character for single target damage, and so I will only assume one character is bleeding. If you build this character and vary it for multi-target damage, which would be pretty easy to do, then you might count on multiple bleeding conditions in a round of combat, and that would be pretty cool. For us, we're going to assume 1 vicious attack as our action, 2 reactions using Riposte, and a 5 points of bleeding for a single character. In a round of combat, if all of that goes off, we're going to do 68 points of damage. Pretty awesome. Let's do point buy for rank 3. We're going to bring our melee to a 6, agility to a 3, resilience to a 5, vigilance to a 4. We will now have defenses of 16 for melee and agility, 15 for resilience, 14 for vigilance, 7 for ego, 10 for logic. We'll be sitting on 150 points of health and 120 points of focus, and we're going to start using that focus right now. The first power we are going to take is Focused Fury. This is why we had to take Exploit at the last rank. Focused Fury allows us to expend focus when we hit with the melee attack, and for every 2 points of focus we spend, we can then add in an additional point of damage. Upon a fantastic success, those numbers are doubled, just like all of our numbers are doubled. And we are going to be assuming that we want to pump as much as we can into an attack. Please note, with Focused Fury, we can only spend an amount of focus that is equal to 5 times our rank. So right now that's 15 points of focus, but 15 points of focus is an odd number, and so we're actually going to be expending 14 points of focus at this rank in order to do an additional 7 points of damage. Keep that in mind whenever you are at an odd numbered rank. The next power we're going to take is Mighty 3. We now have a 3 damage multiplier on all of our melee attacks. We're going to take Sturdy 1 at this rank. I wanted to bring in Sturdy powers earlier, but I just didn't have the ability to do so. We're always going to be a little bit of a glass cannon on this character, but having a 1 damage reduction is going to be beneficial for us. We're going to take Speed Run 2 on this character, which is going to get a little bit ridiculous. First of all, this modifies our Speed Run 1 ability. Remember, Speed Run says that our in-combat speed is our rank times our regular speed. We have a 25-foot movement speed. We're rank 3, which means in combat we're running 75 feet per every 5 seconds. But Speed Run 2 now is going to get a little bit ridiculous. It says that our out-of-combat speed is now 50 times our in-combat speed. At this rank, that means out of combat we're running over 3,700 feet per every 5 seconds. We are not going into a new power set at this rank. Instead, we want a 5th power, and we are taking Blur. Blur is essential for the combo that we are putting together. Blur says that any attack against us now has trouble. That simple. And this is going to pair really well with our reaction attacks, because our reactions are triggered when someone misses us with an attack. Now all of those attacks have trouble. It doesn't matter what defense score they are against. Our trait at this rank is going to be Signature Attack, and we're going to pick as our signature attack Focused Fury. I delayed Signature Attack until I had an attack that I wanted to pump a lot of focus into to deal a lot of damage, and here we go. Because of Blazing Fast Fists, we now have a double edge on our Focused Fury attacks, which means they're just going to land the vast majority of the time. So let's take a look at damage here at rank 3, and things are really starting to come together for us. Our first attack is now going to be Focused Fury, where we're going to dump the maximum amount of focus that we can into it, which is 14 points at this rank, causing an additional 7 points of damage. We are then going to ideally be able to use Riposte twice for 2 attacks that cannot expend focus. We will assume 1 bleeding condition. If all of that goes off in a round of combat, we're doing 102 points of damage. Rank 4 is where this all comes together. We've already been doing significant damage every round of combat so far, but the second half of this character's career gets ridiculous. First, we're going to do point buy. We're going to bring agility to a 7, agility finally to a 5, which is going to increase our movement speed by 5 feet at the base. This has enormous implications for us, but we're going to get into that. Resilience is going to be a 6, Vigilance is going to be a 5. This is going to give us defenses of a 17 for melee and agility, a 16 for resilience, 15 for vigilance, 7 for ego, 10 for logic. We will have 180 points of health, and we're going to have 150 points of focus. And since we're dumping focus into an attack every round, we will actually be utilizing this. I said at the beginning of this video that I believe Lightning Actions is the most powerful ability someone can take in Marvel Multiverse. You cannot take it till rank 4, and of course, it's the first thing we are going to take. We have every prerequisite necessary in order to take this. Let's finally explore what it does. We have become so fast that we get a permanent additional action and additional reaction every round of combat. If that wasn't enough, we also can turn our Marvel die over to a 1 every initiative roll. It is hard to exaggerate how good this is. If you have built fighters in Dungeons and Dragons, you know how powerful Action Surge is, which gives you an additional action once per short rest. Many characters take a 2-level dip into fighter just to do that periodically. Lightning Actions gives you essentially Action Surge every round of combat permanently. There's no expenditure of focus. You don't have to do anything for this to happen. It is now a permanent feature of the character. We will be using this additional action and reaction in order to do massive amounts of damage. But we also get to go in a bonus round at the beginning of combat. When you roll a fantastic success in an initiative check, you go in a bonus round of combat that is only available to people who have rolled a fantastic success. And that means we're going to get off a ton of damage before most enemies even get to act. And then we go during the normal first round of combat as well, where we will be going early. It is completely possible that this character is going to have 2 full rounds of combat before an enemy gets to take a move. That enemy is dead. The next power we're going to take is Hit and Run. Now, Hit and Run is something we're going to use periodically. I won't be assuming we're using it when I calculate damage, but this allows us to make an attack with our action, and then upon just a regular success, we can move half of our speed for free. Our movement speed is now insane, and as a result, we can use this if we need to reposition in the battlefield, and we're going to be able to reposition really well. How well can we reposition? Well, remember, when you reach 5 points of agility, your movement speed at the base goes up by 5 feet. So our base movement would have been 30. However, In combat, we now have the ability to multiply our base movement speed by our rank, which is 4. In combat, we can move 120 feet. Out of combat, we move 50 times as fast, which is 6,000 feet per round. If you combine that with hit and run, you can use hit and run to reposition on the battlefield to anywhere you want with almost no limit. This is going to give you the best mobility I think is possible on the ground in the game. Next power we're going to take is Mighty 4 for a 4 damage multiplier for every melee attack. Of course we need this, and of course we're taking it as soon as we can. The next power we're going to take is Sturdy 2, so we now have a 2 damage reduction on this character, which is cool. The last power we're going to take is Iconic Weapon, and of course we're going to say that our blade is somehow a gift of the gods that did not get unlocked until this rank. And at minimum, we should be able to say that that blade gives us an edge on attacks, meaning our Focused Fury attack now has a triple edge. 1 from Blazing Fast Fist, 1 from Signature Attack, and 1 from Iconic Weapon. The trait we're going to take at this rank is going to be Combat Ready, which gives us an additional 30 points of focus. If you have a character that burns focus to make attacks, you kind of need this. We're not spending an inordinate amount of focus. We're really only using it for our Focused Fury attack, but I want to feel comfortable dumping the maximum amount of damage into this every round of combat if possible. I'm certain you can see how ridiculous damage is going to be on this character, but let's talk it through. We now are able to do 2 attack actions on our turn, both of them Focused Fury, both of them dumping 20 points of focus in. Each one will then have an additional 10 points of damage. We then get to make 3 reaction attacks. I'm assuming all of them are going to be our regular riposte reaction. Even though we will probably have a fantastic success, we're just going to assume that this is normal riposte damage, and we will assume one of our enemies is going to take 5 points of bleeding. That's assuming they're not dead already. We have a 4 damage multiplier on these attacks as well, and remember, Focused Fury has a triple edge. This means we're going to make 2 Focused Fury attacks, each of them doing 49 points of damage, and so that's 98 points of damage during our regular action. Our 3 reaction attacks will each do about 39 points of damage because there's no Focused Fury that's part of them, and that adds up to 117 points of damage plus 5 points of bleeding, meaning that on a round of combat, we're doing 220 points of damage. This is more than double what we were doing 1 rank ago. At this rank, I will not be taking every power available to me. I'm going to be able to get 6 ability points rather than 5 as a result. And so I'm going to be able to cap melee, resilience, and vigilance at 8s across the board, and that's really going to just be a nice way of boosting up this character. We're going to have defenses of 18 for melee, agility, resilience, and vigilance, and we're still going to be super squishy when it comes to ego and logic with defenses of 7 and 10 effectively. We will have 240 points of health and 270 points of focus. At this rank, we're going into a new power set. We're going into the martial arts power set because there's one power we really want. But to get there, we need to take Fast Strikes. Fast Strikes allows us to split our attack against 2 different opponents, causing half damage normally and full damage to each upon a fantastic success. I do not anticipate using this power almost at all. What we really want is Chain Strikes. Chain Strikes allows us to make an attack against an opponent with an edge. If it is a success, they take regular damage. On a fantastic success, we get to make an additional chain strike. I like to point out that chain strikes is a melee attack, meaning that we are going to have an edge from chain strikes because it says you have an edge. We get an edge from Iconic Weapon, and we get an edge from Blazing Fast Fist. So we now have a triple edge on this attack. If it's a fantastic success, we get to do it again. And we can do this for both of our actions. If we use all 3 of our edges for the Marvel die, we will have a fantastic success about half the time. But do you know how we can make sure that Chain Strikes gets even better? That's right, it's time for Combat Trickery. Combat Trickery is a wonderful power, and it allows you to simply once per battle decide that something is going to be a fantastic success after the dice is rolled, and it ignores all trouble. This can only be utilized against someone of the same rank or higher than yourself. And so we're going to be using this against bosses, but that's what this character is built for, is taking down one big target. So we will then be guaranteeing a fantastic success on our first chain strike, allowing us to do an additional chain strike, and then we're still going to have an additional action. If we do chain strikes again, we get a triple edge, and every time we have a fantastic success, we get to do this all over again. So what trait are we taking at this rank? We're going to take Signature Attack again. I can't help myself. You can take Signature Attack multiple times, so long as each time you take it for a different weapon or power. We're taking it for Chain Strikes, meaning that Chain Strikes now has a quadruple edge to it. When you roll Chain Strikes, you will be able to have a fantastic success about 2/3 of the time. Each time that happens, you get to do a chain strike all over again. Let's go ahead and do damage. And how is this going to look? Because we have Combat Trickery and a quadruple edge on chain strikes, I am going to assume that we get at least one fantastic success off of chain strikes. So our first chain strike is going to be a fantastic success. The damage is not doubled on a fantastic success of chain strikes. We simply get to do it again. I will assume an average roll for our second chain strike, though that is being very conservative, I admit. Our second action is going to be a Focused Fury attack, dumping the entirety of the amount of focus we can spend into the attack, which is going to be 24 points for an additional 12 points of damage. We then get 3 reaction attacks, and we're going to assume our target takes 5 points of bleeding. All of that in a round of combat is going to give us 299 points of damage if all of that goes off. If you pull off additional chains in your chain strike, it will go higher. It's worth mentioning that that's likely because your chain strikes get a quadruple edge and your Focused Fury attacks are going to get a triple edge. Let's take a look at rank 6 to finish off this character. We are going to only be taking 3 powers at this rank, and so I'm going to actually have 7 ability score points to spend. We're going to cap melee, resilience, and vigilance at a 9, giving us 19 defenses for melee, agility, resilience, and vigilance. And we're finally going to bump logic here to a 4, giving us a defense score of 14. Which means here at rank 6, we're going to have 270 points of health and 300 points of focus. 2 of the 3 powers that we're going to take at this rank are going to be Sturdy 3 and 4, so we're finally going to get up to 4 damage reduction, which is going to feel nice on this character. The next power we're going to take is Focused Strike. This is going to allow us to make a melee attack expend focus, just like we have been doing, in order to add damage. And upon a fantastic success, not only is the damage doubled, but the enemy is stunned for 1 round. I am actually not going to explicitly use this power when I'm calculating damage here at this rank, but if you need to stun one enemy and move on to another, then this might prove particularly useful. The trait we're going to take at this rank is Enduring Constitution. I think this just is more flavorful and thematic than something we really need on this character, but it means that we can go 48 hours without needing to do resilience checks to overcome fatigue or weariness. It just makes sense with the journey this character has taken. So what does combat look like for us? We're going to start with chain strikes, and if we don't somehow get a fantastic success with the first attack, we're going to do Combat Trickery in order to guarantee it. So after that, we get to do chain strikes again, and after a quadruple success, I'm only going to assume that we get to do this that 1 additional time. Our second action is going to be Focused Fury, and we're going to spend the maximum amount of focus on this attack, which is 30 points, which adds 15 points of damage. We then are going to have 3 reaction attacks. I'm assuming that they are basic riposte attacks, and they are going to do their normal amount of damage, which we do not get to spend focus on, and I will not assume that any of them are going to be fantastic successes. And lastly, after all of that, you better believe that at least one enemy has the bleeding condition, so we're going to add 5 points of damage. Assuming in a round of combat all of that goes off, we will be doing 334 points of damage on the board, potentially to one enemy. This is not necessarily spread out among different enemies, though I assume it probably will be. That is an insane amount of damage that we can put out. And please don't forget, we get a fantastic success on our initiative checks. As a result, we're going to go during a bonus round, and then we're going to go very early inside of the regular round of combat. This character does an insane amount of damage. The ability for chain strikes to chain one after another and potentially let you make more than just the 2 attacks that I am assuming is going to be pretty great. I love that feeling. And when you finally get around to your Focused Fury attack, we just get to empower that with a really nice expenditure of focus. But it's going to be hard to do Focused Fury rather than another chain strike to try to get that string of additional successes again. I absolutely love it. This character would be insane to play, and I really only recommend going down this route if you are fast at making rolls and calculating damage, because you're going to be making a lot of attacks with this character and you don't want to bog down gameplay. But assuming that you can make your rolls fast and make your decisions fast, this character is a monster on the battlefield and can reposition to a pretty extreme degree. How much of an extreme degree? Well, by rank 6, your in-combat speed is 180 feet per round, and out of combat, you can move 9,000 feet per every round, which is 5 seconds. I do believe with the potential of making at minimum 6 attacks in a round of combat, maybe more, and out of combat moving 9,000 feet per every 5 seconds, we have made the ultimate speedster. Anyway, that's the build for the week. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you enjoy making characters and playing this game. As always, YouTube's literally made out of buttons. I hope you press some of them, and I'll see you next time. All right, peace.